That night everything felt wrong. The house was eerily still, the kind of silence that presses against your chest. I was in the kitchen cleaning up after dinner when I felt him watching me. My son stood there in the doorway, his small figure barely outlined by the dim hallway light. His eyes locked on mine with an intensity one had never seen before. Slowly, he crossed the room and sat down beside me, his presence unnervingly close. Then in a voice so soft it was almost a breath, he whispered 3 words that shattered the peace and opened a door I wasn't ready to face. The evening had unfolded like any other. My son Jason had come home from school, his backpack slung carelessly over his shoulder, his shoes scattered across the floor as usual. He had been distant lately, quiet, introspective, but I didn't think much of it. After all, he was growing up. Boys go through phases, right? It was normal. At least that's what I told myself. But something in the air that night felt different. I finished the dinner dishes in the kitchen, lost in the rhythmic motion of scrubbing and rinsing. The hum of the refrigerator was the only sound, the clink of the plates in the sink like a constant reminder that time was ticking away. Jason had barely said a word after dinner, retreating to his room as soon as he was done. I knew I should check in on him, ask him about his day, but the exhaustion of the week was starting to weigh on me. My mind wandered, drifting between the mundane tasks I had to finish and the thoughts that always linger just below the surface. But then there was that silence. It wasn't the peaceful kind that came with the end of the day when the house settled into a quiet comfort. No, this silence was heavy, pressing down on my shoulders, making me feel like I was on the verge of something I couldn't name. It made me uneasy, like a storm was brewing just beyond the horizon. I wiped my hands on a dish towel and walked into the living room, expecting to see Jason hunched over his video games or buried in a book. But instead, the room was dark except for directly at me. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. I could feel my heart pick up speed, a subtle pressure building in my chest. Jason had always been the more reserved of my 2 children, but this was different. I could sense it in the air and the way his gaze seemed to hold something unspoken, something that tugged at my insides, making me feel like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, not sure if I wanted to fall or pull away. Jason. My voice sounded strange, almost foreign to me. He didn't respond right away, but I could see him taking a slow, deliberate step toward me, his bare feet making no sound on the hardwood floor. The usual confidence he had was gone. This Jason, the one in front of me now, was someone I didn't recognize. He was different. As he sat beside me on the couch, the air seemed to grow thicker, the space between us smaller, tighter. He was closer than I had ever felt to him in a long time. But it wasn't the warmth I expected. It wasn't the comfort of a mother and son, the easy familiarity of the bond we shared. It was something else, something unsettling. I turned to face him, my heart thumping louder now, a strange mix of anxiety and curiosity swirling inside me. "What's going on, Jason?" I asked, trying to sound casual, but my voice cracked a little. He didn't answer right away, and the silence stretched between us like a taut rope. I could feel the weight of his gaze, like he was trying to decide something important. Then, after what felt like an eternity, he spoke. His voice was quiet, almost too quiet, and it sent a chill running down my spine. "Mom," he began, and I could see how the words seemed to weigh on him, how he was struggling with something that had been festering inside him for far too long. "What is it, sweetheart?" I whispered, almost afraid to hear the answer. He looked down at his hands, his fingers fidgeting with the hem of his shirt. It was as if he were gathering the strength to say whatever it was that had been eating away at him. The pause stretched, and in that moment, I realized that whatever was about to come out of his mouth, it wasn't going to be something I was ready for. "Mom, I need to tell you something." He finally met my eyes, and the look in his eyes sent a shiver through me. It wasn't just the uncertainty of a teenager unsure of how to communicate. No, this was something deeper. His eyes held fear. Fear of me. Fear of the truth. Fear of whatever secret he was about to confess. And that's when it hit me. This was something I wasn't prepared for. My breath caught in my throat, and I suddenly felt like I was standing at the edge of a precipice, peering down into an unknown abyss. My son, the child I thought I knew so well, was no longer the boy I had raised. Whatever he was about to say, it had the power to break everything we had ever been. It had the power to change us both. And then in the stillness of that moment, He whispered those 3 words. "Mom, I'm sorry." It was as if the ground beneath me gave way. My mind reeled, trying to process the sudden rush of emotions. Sorry for what? Sorry for being distant. Sorry for shutting me out. I had no idea what he meant. And the lack of clarity made everything feel more intense, more overwhelming. I wanted to ask him to demand an explanation, but something in his expression told me that the words he had just spoken were only the tip of the iceberg. My heart raced, my thoughts scattered in 1,000 different directions. The silence that followed felt suffocating. I could feel the weight of those 3 words pressing down on me, shattering the sense of safety I had built around myself, around our family. Jason's apology didn't feel like just a simple confession. It felt like the beginning of something much larger, something I wasn't ready to face. "What do you mean, Jason?" My voice trembled, but I couldn't stop it. The fear that had settled deep in my chest now bubbled to the surface, mixing with confusion and a deep aching dread. And then, with a slight tremor in his voice, he spoke again, his words coming out in a rush, as if he couldn't hold them in any longer. "I didn't mean to, but it's true and I can't take it back." He stopped, looking away, his eyes searching for something in the room that wasn't there. The air felt thick, too thick to breathe. I could feel the walls closing in around us, the space between us shrinking with every passing second. And then, like the calm before a storm, the silence returned, heavier than before. What Jason was telling me, whatever confession lay just beneath the surface, was only the beginning. I wasn't ready for this. I wasn't ready to hear the truth. But more than anything, I wasn't ready to change the way I saw my son. And yet I knew deep down that this moment, this night, would mark the end of everything I thought I can. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest as I sat frozen on the couch staring at my son. His words, those 3 simple words, were hanging in the air, thick with the weight of something I had yet to understand. I had always prided myself on being a good mother, on knowing my children better than anyone else, but now I realized how wrong I had been. I didn't know him as well as I thought. "Jason." My voice was barely a whisper. The word felt foreign on my tongue, like a plea for something I couldn't grasp. He didn't look at me, his gaze fixed on the floor, his fingers twisting nervously in his lap. I could tell that he was battling something inside, trying to find the right words. But it was clear that whatever he was going to say next, it would tear the fabric of our reality apart. "I don't know how to explain it," he murmured, his voice trembling. "I didn't mean for it to happen, but it did. And I can't pretend it didn't." My mind was reeling. 1,000 scenarios flashed through my head, each one more terrifying than the last. What had he done? What was he confessing? I wanted to reach out to him, to hold him, to tell him that everything would be okay, but my hand remained frozen at my side. I didn't know what to believe anymore. "Jason, please talk to me." My words felt desperate now, pleading. I needed him to open up, to explain himself. The silence between us felt unbearable, like a chasm that no amount of words could fill. He took a deep breath, his hands shaking. "It was after the camping trip last month," he began, his voice barely audible. "I didn't tell you everything that happened. I didn't want to hurt you, but now I have to." I felt my stomach twist. The camping trip. He had gone with his friends and their families, including his best friend's older sister, Emily. I hadn't thought much of it at the time. I had trusted him, believed that he was just another teenager experiencing life, making memories. But now, with each word that came from his mouth, the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place in a way I wasn't prepared for. I don't know how to say this, Mom, but Emily, she kissed me," he continued, his voice cracking under the weight of his confession. It wasn't just a quick kiss either. It felt real, and I didn't stop it. My breath caught in my throat. Emily, his best friend's older sister. I couldn't wrap my mind around it. I had known Emily for years. She had always been kind, respectful, like a daughter I never had. But this was something I hadn't expected. My mind raced to process what he was telling me. Jason, my son, had kissed her. And worse, he didn't stop it. "But you were just experimenting, right?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, trying to convince myself that this was just a phase, something he would get over. I needed to believe that, or I would lose my mind. Jason shook his head, his eyes filled with guilt. "It wasn't just that, Mom. It felt different. I didn't know what it meant, but I couldn't stop thinking about it, about her. And that scared me because I didn't want to feel that way. I didn't know how to respond. I couldn't wrap my head around this new version of Jason. The boy I thought I knew so well had just revealed a part of himself that felt like a stranger. And now I was left to pick up the pieces of a reality that felt shattered, like a mirror broken into 1,000 fragments. He continued, his voice lower now, barely above a whisper. I've been thinking about it ever since. I didn't want to tell you, Mom. I didn't want to disappoint you, but I couldn't keep it inside anymore. I felt the weight of his words settle on me like a lead blanket. There was something so raw in the way he was confessing, something that spoke to the fear and shame he was carrying. As much as I wanted to be angry, to shout, to demand answers, I knew that I couldn't. He was my son, and this was the moment where I had to decide who I was going to be in his life, what kind of mother I would be. Jason, I finally managed, my voice trembling. I don't know what to say. This is so much to take in. I know, he said quietly, his eyes filled with tears now. I didn't want to hurt you, Mom. I didn't want to hurt anyone, but I couldn't stop thinking about her, and I didn't know what it meant, and I was scared. His vulnerability cut through me like a knife. I could feel his pain, his confusion. He wasn't just telling me about a kiss. He was revealing a part of himself he didn't understand. A part of him that was still figuring out who he was, what he wanted, and how to navigate the confusing maze of emotions that came with growing up. I took a deep breath, trying to find my grounding in the chaos of my emotions. Jason, this is a lot. But I need you to understand something. What you did, it doesn't define who you are. You're not a bad person. But this is important. Relationships, boundaries, they matter. And you need to learn how to respect both your feelings and others' feelings. He nodded, tears now streaming down his face. I know, Mom. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I just didn't know what to do. I pulled him into a tight embrace, feeling the weight of everything he had just shared. He was still my son, the same boy I had held in my arms when he was a baby, the same boy I had watched grow up and become someone I barely recognized. But in that moment, as I held him close, I knew that this was a turning point for both of us. You're going to make mistakes, Jason, I whispered, my voice breaking. But that doesn't mean I'm going to give up on you. We're going to figure this out together. You're not alone. He nodded against me, his body trembling in my arms. I'm so sorry, Mom. I don't know how to fix it. I kissed the top of his head, my heart heavy with the knowledge that our relationship had shifted in ways I wasn't prepared for. But as I held him, I knew one thing for certain. We would face this together. It wasn't going to be easy, but we would find our way through it. And maybe, just maybe, this was the moment that would shape the man he was becoming. Don't worry about fixing anything right now, Jason, I said softly. We'll take it one step at a time. Just promise me you'll always be honest with me, no matter how hard it is. I promise, Mom. His voice was thick with emotion, and for a moment I wondered if he truly understood what he was promising. But I knew that we had reached a new chapter, one where honesty and understanding would be the foundation of everything moving forward. As we sat there together, the weight of his confession still heavy in the air, I realized something important. No matter how difficult the truth was, no matter how painful the journey would be, this was my son. And as his mother, it was my job to support him, to guide him, and to love him through it all. Even if the path ahead was uncertain, I knew we would face it together, stronger than before. The room felt suffocating, like the air itself had become thick with everything unsaid. Jason sat next to me, but it felt as though an ocean separated us now. His confession, those 3 simple words, echoed in my mind, replaying over and over again. I kissed her. A part of me wanted to scream, to lash out, to ask how this had happened, why it had happened. But I knew deep down that the anger wouldn't help. The confusion, the hurt, the betrayal, it all tangled together in my chest like a knot I couldn't undo. I looked at him, trying to make sense of what I had just learned. My son, my sweet, innocent son, had kissed someone, and not just anyone. Emily. I had known Emily since she was a child, had watched her grow up. She was like family to me. And now, in the blink of an eye, everything was tainted. It wasn't just a kiss. It was the beginning of something complicated, something I couldn't quite grasp. Why? I asked, the word slipping out before I could stop it. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Why wait until now? Jason's eyes darted around the room, avoiding mine. He was trembling, his fingers clenched so tightly that his knuckles were white. "I didn't want to hurt you, Mom," he muttered, his voice barely audible. "I didn't want to disappoint you." I didn't even know what it meant at first, but it felt wrong to hide it. The vulnerability in his voice hit me harder than I expected. It wasn't just guilt I heard. It was shame. And that scared me more than anything. I had seen that look before on my own face in moments when I had to confront parts of myself that were too difficult to accept. I leaned back against the couch, my mind racing. What now? The question played in my mind like a broken record. He was my son, my child. And yet, in this moment I didn't know him. I didn't know what he had become. The boy I thought I understood, the one who came to me for advice, who laughed at my corny jokes, seemed to have disappeared, replaced by someone I didn't recognize. A part of me longed for the simplicity of the past when everything was clear-cut, when I could hold on to the illusion that everything was fine. But nothing felt fine now, nothing would ever be the same again. I reached out, my hand hovering over his, unsure of what to do. I wanted to comfort him, to tell him everything would be okay. But I knew that was a lie. It wouldn't be okay. Not immediately. There were too many things left unsaid. Too many wounds to heal. "Do you regret it?" The question came out almost instinctively. I wasn't sure what I wanted him to say. Part of me wanted him to admit that it had been a mistake, that it wasn't anything more than a moment of weakness. But deep down I knew it wasn't that simple. Relationships, emotions, feelings, they didn't work like that. And maybe this wasn't about regret. Maybe this was about him figuring out who he was. Jason took a long time to answer, his eyes lost in the distance. "I don't know," he whispered. "I don't know if it was a mistake, or if it was just me finally realizing something about myself." The weight of his words crashed over me, realizing something about himself. What did that mean? Was this the beginning of something bigger? A new part of him emerging that he wasn't ready to understand? Or was this a passing phase, something that would fade as quickly as it had come? I looked at him, my heart aching with the knowledge that there was so much more I had yet to uncover. As much as I wanted to shield him, to protect him from the mistakes I had made, I knew that wasn't my job anymore. He was no longer that little boy who needed my guidance for every step. He was becoming someone else, someone with his own desires, his own struggles, his own identity. I felt my stomach twist in knots. "So what now, Jason? What happens now?" His gaze flickered to mine, and for a moment I saw the boy I used to know, the one who still needed his mother. But the uncertainty in his eyes was undeniable. "I don't know," he admitted softly. "I don't know what happens now, but I can't keep pretending nothing's changed. I can't just forget about it." I swallowed hard, the lump in my throat making it difficult to speak. Can I forget about it? The thought felt foreign, almost impossible. How could I ever forget that my son had crossed a line I didn't even know existed? How could I ever pretend that things were normal after hearing those words? "Jason, I don't know how to fix this," I said, my voice breaking. "I don't know how to make this okay. I want to be there for you, but I don't know how to make sense of all of this. I don't know if I can ever look at Emily the same way again." The pain in his eyes deepened, and I realized just how much this was eating him up inside. He was hurting too. My anger, my fear, my shock, they were all legitimate feelings, but they couldn't overshadow the fact that my son was suffering too. "I didn't want to hurt her," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "I didn't want to hurt anyone, especially not you. I didn't mean for any of this to happen." The depth of his regret tore at my heart. It was clear that he was as lost as I was, struggling to understand the consequences of his actions, wrestling with feelings he wasn't ready to face. And I, his mother, was sitting here trying to make sense of it all. But maybe, just maybe, that was the key. I didn't have to make sense of it right now. I didn't have to have all the answers. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "Jason, we're going to work through this. I don't have all the answers, but I'm here for you. We're going to figure this out together." He looked at me, his eyes filled with something between relief and doubt. "Do you really mean that?" I nodded, my voice soft but firm. "Yes, we'll figure this out, but it's going to take time. And it's going to hurt, but we'll do it together." And as I spoke those words, I realized something. The pain, the uncertainty, the fear, it was all a part of growing up for both of us. We didn't have to have all the answers right away. But for the first time in a long time, we were facing this uncertainty together. The days that followed were quiet, filled with long introspective silences. Jason and I spoke less, but in the few words we exchanged, there was an unspoken understanding. I wasn't sure what the future held, but I had come to accept that we couldn't rush this healing process. It would take time for both of us to process, to forgive, and to rebuild what had been fractured. I watched my son one evening as he sat on the porch, looking out into the fading sunlight. His face no longer held the same confusion, though the pain was still there, lingering in the depths of his eyes. I sat beside him, our shoulders brushing ever so slightly. Neither of us spoke, but the comfort in the stillness was enough. "You're not alone," I whispered after a while, the words slipping out like a quiet promise. Jason didn't answer right away, but he didn't need to. His hand found mine, and for a moment we sat together in shared silence, letting the weight of the past few days settle. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't easy, but we had a chance to heal, and that was enough for now. In that moment I realized that no matter the pain, no matter the uncertainty, the bond between us could never truly break. It would bend, it would stretch, but it would always hold strong.